Well, good evening, good evening. And how is everybody doing? All right, so the reason why this video took a lot longer than it was supposed to is because I've decided that I wanted to be a little bit more spontaneous with it. I did not want it to be like a scripted thing like I normally do. And depending on how I perform purely spontaneously, I will decide whether or not this is something that I'm going to do more often. But I'm still going to do the more premeditated thing where I'm writing things down because it really helps me to really get deep and contemplate, right? But in any case. All right, I see familiar faces. I see unfamiliar faces. Lola has not been in my chat in a long time. I see Mooncloud. I saw Mooncloud here. You guys are overly focusing on nakshatras. There's not going to be a lot of that here. Well, a little bit maybe. I see Corgi. Pez Bruja. Never seen you before, but welcome to my chat. IO7625. Welcome to my chat. All right then. So, what are we going to be exploring today? For the most part, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be studying the second house. But we're also going to be touching a little bit on the fourth house, a little bit on the sixth house. And really what we're doing in this video is we want to be able to see if somebody was born wealthy or born poor. Not if they will go on to make wealth in the future. That's different. That's different. We want to see purely if they were born wealthy or born poor. Now, I would very much like for you guys to participate. Please recommend wealthy people who were born wealthy, people who were born poor, but I also compiled a short list over here and I want to go through them. I'm not sure if I want to do fully the rich people first or fully the poor people first, but in any case, we'll figure it out. So let us start off with Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey. So Jim Carrey was born poor. We're just going to confirm this. So the AI overview is telling us he was born poor. Jim Carrey grew up facing severe financial hardship after his father lost his job. But you'll, of course, find many other sources that talk about Jim Carrey's early life. I think he lived in a trailer park very, very early on. Let's see if the AI overview has sources other than Facebook. But in any case, Jim Carrey grew up in severe, severe poverty. So let's see if in his chart we can figure this out. We can figure out why. Let's use Astro theme because I like how colorful it is, even though Ayat Namsa is not the most accurate. All right then. So let us check this out. Let us check this out. So what we're going to be discussing a lot today is also the concept of functional benefics versus functional malefic, right? And how when these affect your second house and when these also affect your fourth house, well, it comes with very severe effects for your life. So over here with Jim Carrey, what we see is that the second house, the second lord is relatively well placed. It's in Sagittarius. The lord of Scorpio, right, is in Sagittarius. But what we see a lot of mess, a lot of really difficult things is in his fourth house. We see that the ascendant lord is conjunct the worst planet for a Libra ascendant. The most dangerous planet for a Libra ascendant is, of course, the sun because it rules the 11th house. We see that the Libra ascendant, we see that Venus is conjunct the sun. And we see that the sun is also conjunct Saturn. So this is a very, very, very difficult position. What it suggests is that his early life was extremely difficult and was marked by a lot of scarcity because the 11th lord, when it's not very well placed, represents a lot of scarcity. Remember, the 11th house has a lot to do with favors, right? You're constantly asking people for favors. Why are you constantly asking people for favors? Because you lack. The 11th house at its worst has a lot to do with things that we do because we lack. Very horrible moral things that we do because we lack. Like at the most extremes, we might sell drugs because we lack. We might get into a lot of illegal businesses because we lack. We might even get into sex work because we lack. So the 11th Lord and the 11th house, when it's badly placed, has a lot to do with lack, which is why it is that you put yourself in these crazy situations in order to gain something. So the fact that the ascendant Lord is conjunct the Lord of lack and it's very badly placed suggests that in his initial life, he was very much marked with lack. And since it's in his fourth house, it suggests that his family life, his home life was also marked a lot with that. So this is an example of a chart. I actually didn't realize that I wanted to first start off with second house examples and then move on to fourth and sixth house examples, but I suppose I did not organize this very well. But in any case, we're seeing this as an example. But let's go to another one. Another celebrity that was born very, very poor is Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton, born poor. Let's see if we can find quickly some reliable sources. The AI overview is telling us that she grew up in extreme poverty in a tiny one-room cabin in rural Tennessee. And then there are other articles that also talk about her rural poverty. Okay, so now let us go Dolly Parton birth chart. AA verified. Dolly Parton birth chart. Okay, so now we're seeing here in Dolly Parton's case, see, for a Leo ascendant, Mercury is the worst planet, right? Because it rules the 11th house. Automatically, when a planet rules your 11th house, it's a functional malefic, generally speaking, right? So, but if it's well placed, then it won't be too much of a problem. But of course, in Dolly Parton's case, unfortunately, it is very badly placed. Because the second and 11th Lord, which is Mercury, is in Sagittarius, which suggests that it's quite badly placed, which suggests that her early life was again also marked by lack. And then on top of that, when we look at her fourth Lord, which is Mars, which is a functional benefic, we see that still it is conjunct a functional malefic, and it's in the 11th house, which is the house of lack. So, but her second Lord and her fourth Lord are doing very, very badly, which suggests extreme poverty. So, whereas the second house has more to do with your parents and the finances of your family from your initial life, the fourth house specifically has to do with land, has to do with your family's investments, properties, and things like that. And so, the fourth house also has something to do with wealth as well. It also has something to do with wealth as well. The sixth house has a lot to do with struggle. It has a lot to do with struggle. And so for her first Lord to be in her sixth house, it suggests that she struggled a lot in her early life. But now, check this out. Even though the sixth house has a lot to do with struggle, when the sixth house is strong, it can lead to wealth later on in life. And so if your second Lord or your fourth Lord or your first Lord is in the sixth house, it can suggest that you started off with a lot of struggles, but then you slowly built yourself up to wealth. All right. So let me check the chat and see if you guys are following along, or if I'm not, maybe I should change my approach. Okay. Born poor, take you as an example. If you want, I can use you as an example as well. If you're willing to share your birth chart, Woline, if that's really what you want. Robert Downey Jr. was born poor. Okay, we'll check that out. Yes, Marilyn Monroe was also born poor, estranged from her mother. Her mother put her in foster homes. We're going to check Marilyn Monroe out. Robert Downey Jr. and Marilyn Monroe, we'll check that out. Rihanna was born poor too? Really? Was she? Yes, it is very true. Celebrities do sometimes lie about their biographies. Yes, unfortunately, that is always something that we have to take into account. Thank you, Running with Horses. That is a very, very true statement. Lana Del Rey also lied about, you know something, I did not know anything about Lana Del Rey's early life, because sometimes it's like she grew up rich, other times it's like she grew up poor. All right. All right. Let me tell you something, Shibil. The 11th house has a lot to do with both lack and gain, right? So the 11th house has a lot to do with favors, has a lot to do with the favors that you ask of your network circle, you know? If you have strong and well-placed planets in your 11th house, you gain very easily. If you have weak planets in your 11th house, you lack a lot, but you wish to gain a lot, and so you engage in a lot of exchanging of favors with very powerful people. Let me use an example here. Let me think of something. Let me open up my trusty notepad again. 11th Lord, 11th Lord, 11th Lord. Let us say, crazy example, you have a badly placed Venus in the 11th house, and it's a functional malefic. You know what this suggests? This suggests that you lack a lot, but you have a lot of desires, because when you have a lot of 11 house placements, you desire a lot of things. The 11th house is the ultimate house of greed, lust, debauchery. And so if you're somebody who has a badly placed Venus in the 11th house, you're constantly looking for people to grant you your wishes, and you're willing to exchange one or two things in order to make that happen. So for example, if Venus is badly placed in the 11th house at its extremes, it can make you a sex worker. No, not a sex worker, a sugar baby. It can make you a sugar baby, for example. You know, you want to live a life of luxury. You want to gain a lot and very, very easily. So what do? Without most people knowing, you're going to engage in, you know, certain activities in order to gain. But now let's say you have a well-placed Venus in the 11th house, and it's functional benefic. Then guess what? Now you're the powerful person. Whereas in the first example, you are the weak person looking for powerful people to connect with in order for them to grant your wishes. Now with a well-placed Venus, you are the wish granter. Now everybody's coming after you. Now everybody's humiliating themselves before you. Now everybody is embarrassing themselves, trying to associate themselves with you. Now everybody's like, oh, Shibel, please grant my wishes. Please, associate yourself with me. Please do this for me. And then in exchange, Shibel, I'll do this, I'll do that. If you have a well-placed Venus in the 11th house, you might be surrounded by a lot of fake friends, because all those people are looking at you like a cash cow because they want to gain something from you. You know what I mean? So yeah, it is in this sense the 11th house is both the house of lack and the house of gain. You know, when people have badly placed planets in the 11th house, they exist in a life of such scarcity that they are willing to do anything to get out of that, but anything in a very easy way, you know, because the 11th house has a lot to do with ease, and so you're not necessarily interested in really working hard for it. So yeah. Okay, the conversation is turning to Lana Del Rey. Let me go back. Okay, you guys say that Robert Downey Jr. was supposedly born poor. Born poor. Let's see if we can quickly find some articles regarding that. Robert, according to the AI overview, he was not born into poverty. He was born in New York City to an upper middle class family. He was born in an upper middle class family. Okay, well, let's check this chart out regardless. He does have a birth time, doesn't he? Does he or does he not have a birth time? Okay, so he was born wealthy. Oh, well, let's check this out. So, as an example of somebody who was born wealthy, in fact, let me separate the two notepads. In this notepad, I'm going to say born wealthy. Too bad there are no emojis over here. So our first example over here is Robert Downey Jr. Check this out, you guys. For a Cancer ascendant, what is one of the most blessed planets? In fact, for a Cancer ascendant, the undisputably most blessed planet is Mars, because Mars rules the 10th house and, oh damn, and it rules the 5th house. And where is Robert Downey Jr.'s Mars? It is in the 2nd house. So the most blessed planet for a Cancer ascendant in his chart is in the 2nd house, and he was born wealthy. Now let's check his 4th house to see what we can find. His 4th house, we see that his 4th house is ruled by Venus, and it is exalted in the 9th house. So it's a little bit of an issue here because Venus is a functional malefic, but it is exalted. So again, it suggests wealth. And then it's conjunct the sun, which has its negativities, but the sun is the 2nd lord, and so it blesses with wealth. It blesses with wealth, but it suggests that he had a difficult childhood. It suggests that his family did not get along very well because Venus and Sun are ultimately enemies in the end of the day. And so the conjunction of Venus and Sun in his birth chart suggests wealth, but it also suggests family problems. Let's see if we can find anything about Robert Downey Jr., family dysfunction. Let's see if we can find anything about that. Robert Downey Jr., according to the AI overview, I keep saying according to the AI overview because we do not know how accurate this is, but we're going to scroll down to see if we can find anything else. Robert Downey Jr. has spoken openly about multi-generational family dysfunction. Very interesting. Multi-generational. That is a very interesting statement because the 2nd house also has a lot to do with generations. The 9th house also has to do with the forefathers. So that's interesting. This same conjunction that most likely blessed him with early life wealth is the exact same conjunction that is responsible for family drama, multi-generational family dysfunction. Okay. Are there any articles in this AI overview? You can read more about his reflection on his history and proposals from the Vanity Fair via IMDb or reports from ABC News. Okay. All right. So who else did you guys say? You guys said Marilyn Monroe, okay. But Marilyn Monroe is somebody whose biography I think many of us are familiar with. She was born poor. Marilyn Monroe. Check this out. The sun is the ruler of her 2nd house. And where is her sun? Her sun is in the house of lack, and it's badly placed. Neutral to badly placed. It's in the 11th house, and she was born poor. Now, her 4th house is seemingly doing well because she does have an exalted planet there, despite the fact that it's a functional malefic. But she does have an exalted planet there. But her 2nd lord being in the 11th house suggests that she was born poor. Suggests a lot of difficulty in her early life. That's very, very interesting. I'm trying to see if we can figure out something else over here. If we can add something else. Her 1st lord being in a house of a functional malefic also is not helping situations. But all right, okay. All right then. So let us add another celebrity. Did we check Dolly Parton? Okay, we did. Celine Dion. I'm pretty sure Celine Dion was born poor. Let's see this. Okay, so let's create a separate notepad for the celebrities that we've already done. Born poor. We've done Dolly Parton. We've done Jim Carrey. We've done Marilyn Monroe. Now let's see Celine Dion. Celine Dion, according to the AI overview, was born into a large, low-income family in Charlemagne, Quebec, as the youngest of 14 children. This site, Weebly, I've never heard of it. Okay, Facebook is saying that she was born into poverty. Daily Mirror says she was born poor. Okay, fine. Let's check her birth chart real quick. Celine Dion. Let's check her second and fourth lord. Okay. So this is very interesting. For a Cancer ascendant, Jupiter is one of the benefic planets, and it's in her second house, which suggests that she was born into some wealth. But then her second lord is conjunct. Not only is it conjunct Saturn, check this out. Not only is it conjunct Saturn, it's conjunct Rahu. Saturn and Rahu are the two planets of lack. Rahu is even worse than Saturn. So it's very interesting. Her having Jupiter in the second house would suggest that she was born relatively well. But her second lord is choked by both Rahu and Saturn. That's very, very interesting. If it weren't for that, she would probably have grown up much more wealthy. Okay, let's check the chat. You want us to check you out, user? Okay. Fine, let's run an experiment. Let's see if we can figure out whether you were born rich or poor. Let's check this. You say 9/20/1993. 1993. The 9th month. 20. What else did you say? 9:26 p.m. 9:26 p.m. Denison, Texas. Okay, Denison. Texas. Denison, Texas. Okay. Okay, so user EZ4FK, are you a Barney ascendant at 19 degrees? Let's check if you were born rich or if you were born poor. We see here you're an Aries ascendant, so Venus is a functional malefic. Venus also rules the second house. We see Venus in Leo. That's not very, very good. But we see Ketu in the second house, and Ketu, generally speaking, blesses with wealth. Okay, so this is interesting. What could be the case for you? It's not very obvious to me. On the one hand, Venus being in Leo suggests that you were probably not born into. And then we see that Saturn is opposite your Venus. And Saturn for an Aries ascendant is a functional malefic. All right. If I would have to guess, I would say that you user EZ something. I would say that you were born less than middle class, like lower middle class. So I'll wait for you to confirm that or deny that. Ooh, you gave me a lot of examples, my friend. A lot of examples. Mariah Carey was born poor, was she? I think she was. Let's check Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey, really quick. Mariah Carey, born poor. Mariah Carey grew up in near poverty. Yes, I've also heard a lot about Mariah Carey over the years that she was born into poverty. Let's check her birth chart really quickly. Let's see if we can figure this out. Looking at her second and fourth lord. Okay, Aries ascendant. Okay, so she's an Aries ascendant. Venus is a functional malefic. Venus is in Aries, not too good. Worse still because Mars is far away. Venus is also conjunct Saturn. It is true that Venus and Saturn are friendly, but Venus and Saturn are both functional malefics for an Aries ascendant. And so their combined energy is coming together to do you more harm. And then Saturn is debilitated. And so that debilitated energy is also seeping into her second lord. Oh, that's not good at all. And so you can easily see, it's clear as day that she was born poor. You can see that. But then you can see how later on in life she grew up to be wealthy because she has Ketu in the 6th house, which blesses her with a lot of strength to work and a lot of talent when it comes to the arena of the workplace, which blessed her with a lot of wealth eventually in life. Mariah Carey, somebody else who was born poor. Oh, I can't spell apparently. Born poor. All right then. Who else did you say here? Michael Jackson was born. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is a bit of an odd case because he grew up in the Jackson 5. I think, yeah, they were kind of born poor, but they eventually became wealthy, didn't they? Because Michael Jackson was best friends with Paris Hilton's mother when they were 13 years old. And when they were 13 years old, they made a promise to each other that they would each name their first daughter Paris. Michael named his first daughter Paris, and Paris Hilton's mother named her Paris as well. So it's very confusing. Michael Jackson, was he born poor? He was probably born poor, but he quickly became wealthy at such a young age. Born poor. Was born into a working class family that struggled with poverty in Gary, Indiana. He grew up with 9 siblings in a tiny 2-bedroom house before finding world fame with the Jackson 5. Okay. Let me ask the Google AI overview. What age Michael Jackson became famous and wealthy? Michael Jackson became famous at 11 and achieved major individual wealth, becoming a millionaire by age 16. Yeah, Michael Jackson became very wealthy very, very, very early. Because at 13, he was best friend with Paris Hilton's mom. But whatever. Let's just check his chart anyway. And let's see what we can find. By the way, how are you guys feeling about the pace of this video? Are you guys learning? Is it entertaining? How's it going? How is it going? Okay, so he's an Aquarius ascendant. For an Aquarius ascendant, Jupiter is the worst malefic because Jupiter is also the ruler of the 11th house. Jupiter is in Libra. Jupiter is in Libra, and so it suggests poverty. It suggests poverty. But then he also has Ketu in the 2nd house, doesn't he? Because 28, okay, the degrees are very, very close. We're going to have to go to Astrology because those degrees are too close. Okay, so now, according to Astrology, his Rahu is in Libra, which makes his Ketu in Aries. Okay, fine then. So yeah, because his 2nd lord is as it is, he was born poor. We can see that. Michael Jackson, born poor. Okay, let me check the chat again. Thank you, Joshelle, for loving my content. I don't know how to interpret retrogrades. Okay, a lot of chats here. The 11th house is not the house of fans. The house of fans is the 5th house. Ooh, a lot of chats. Leighton Meester does not have a birth time, Lola, so I can't do hers. Oprah was born poor. Let's go check Oprah. I'm using Vedic astrology, of course. All this is Vedic. Oprah Winfrey was born very poor, if I remember correctly. Mariah's birth time is D-rated? Really? I thought it was... Oh, wow. Anita. But does Anita have a birth time? You guys are enjoying this format? Are you sure? If you are, we can keep going like this. Okay, let's go check if Anita... You guys probably do not know Anita because you guys are mostly a Anglophone audience, but Anita is big in Brazil. Anita is a very famous singer that is big in Brazil. She does have a birth time. I actually do not know if Anita was born rich or poor. Okay, but let's try to guess. Let's try to guess. Just looking at her birth chart over here. Okay. If I had to guess, I'm going to have to say that Anita was born wealthy. You want to know why? Because her second lord is in its own sign. That's good. Her fourth... Oh, but look, she has Venus in the fourth house. It's exalted, but it's still a functional malefic. She has Sun in the fourth house, which is a functional benefic. You know what? I'm going to say that Anita was born wealthy. Whew, let's go check this out. Anita, born poor. Anita, born poor. She was born in a low-income, humble environment. Okay, interesting. According to the AI overview, Anita was born low income. Is that true? Let's see if AI can give us sources. According to British GQ, I agree. Let's look for the word poor here. Here in Brazil, if you're born in a place as poor as I was, no, that doesn't mean that she was born poor, AI. It says if you were born as poor as a place as I was. It's not the same thing. Okay, over here she's saying something else. My family was super poor. So $50 was like, wow. Around 9 years ago, it wasn't that much money. Today it would be like, there's a lot of money come from such a humble background. Okay, so that's interesting. Her second lord in its own sign suggests that it's fine. But maybe the problem is here. Maybe the problem is Venus being a functional malefic and being in her fourth house. And then that malefic energy really manifesting itself because it's conjunct the sun, despite being exalted. And then that energy is made even worse through this aspect, this direct 100% aspect from Jupiter in her 10th house coming down. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. I could have easily as guessed that she was born wealthy, but those small details are very interesting. Okay, let's go back to our little list over here. Tyler Perry, according to the list I compiled, I saw that he was born poor, but let's check this out again. Tyler Perry, born poor, was indeed born into poverty according to AI Overview. It has a few articles over here. He grew up in a difficult and financially struggling household in New Orleans. All right, AI, let's see if you're right. Or rather, let's just pretend like you're right. AA, birth time, verified. Born poor, born poor. Venus is a functional benefic for a Virgo ascendant, but his Venus is in the 11th house and it's not happy in Cancer. And then on top of that, his fourth lord is conjunct Mercury and it's also in Virgo. So all of that suggests poverty. And then look, to make matters even worse, look at his Saturn. His Saturn is in the 8th house and that 100% aspect is going to his 2nd house. Okay, so that's a lot of combinations for poverty. That is a lot of combinations for poverty. Very interesting. Very interesting. A lot of that suggests somebody who was born poor. Tyler Perry, born poor. Okay, let's check another example. We're looking at a lot of people that were born poor. Let's go to the rich people. Northwest. We all know who Northwest is. We don't need to ask AI whether Northwest was born wealthy or poor. We all know that Northwest was born in the lap of luxury. Okay. Northwest, her birth time is AA verified. Taurus ascendant. Let us check this out. For a Taurus ascendant, the most blessed planet is Mercury. And Mercury and Venus, which is the first lord, are both in the second house. That blesses with a lot of wealth. And then we see that the sun is the fourth lord, but for a Taurus ascendant, the sun is not a functional malefic. The sun is simply a neutral planet that simply gives strength. And the sun is in a very low degree, which suggests that it's not even having that much of an effect. But Jupiter is a functional malefic. Jupiter is a functional malefic. But the great thing about Northwest's Jupiter is that her Jupiter is also at a very, very low degree, which suggests that it's not having as much of an effect either. So we're seeing Venus and Mercury both in the second house, blessing her with a lot of early life wealth. So yeah, Northwest was born very wealthy indeed. Northwest. Now let's go check Blue Ivy. We all know who Blue Ivy is. We don't need to ask too many questions. Blue Ivy was most certainly born extremely wealthy. C-rated birth time. C-rated. Okay, fine then. Let's go check her second house and her fourth house. Well, look at this. Look at this. For a Cancer ascendant, Mars is the most blessed planet because it rules the fifth house. So the first, fifth, and the ninth house are the most blessed houses. If a planet rules those houses, it's basically a functional benefic. So her Mars rules at her 10th house, a house of power, and the fifth house. It's the most powerful planet. And where is her Mars? Where's her Mars? It is in the second house, suggesting that she was born with a lot of wealth. And then her second lord is in Sagittarius, which is a good sign, but it's in the sixth house, which is a house of struggle. All right. But overall, it suggests wealth. And we all know that she was indeed born very, very wealthy. And then her fourth house, we see an exalted planet there. But her Saturn is not retrograde like Marilyn Monroe's. You guys, unfortunately, I've never given myself the time to truly study retrogrades, and so I don't really understand them. I don't know whether a Saturn retrograde in the fourth house would have the same effect as a Saturn not retrograde. Could Marilyn Monroe having a Saturn retrograde in the fourth house have caused her estrangement from her own mother at such a young age? I do not know. But okay, whatever. Blue Ivy, another person we all know was born very wealthy. Madonna's daughter, Lourdes, not this Lord, Madonna's Lord. Madonna, Lourdes, Leon. We all know that Lourdes was born very wealthy indeed. Lourdes, AA verified. Let's check this out. All right, so now this is a very interesting case. Let's talk about it. So, for an Aquarius ascendant, the two most blessed planets are Venus and Saturn. Because when a planet rules your first lord, it's automatically, generally speaking, it is a functional benefic. Where is Saturn? Saturn is in her second house, which is good. And Saturn and Jupiter are generally speaking neutral to one another, but when they are four places from one another, they are friendly, which is good. It suggests that she's blessed with wealth. Now check something else. Jupiter is the most cursed planet for an Aquarius ascendant, but in her case, Jupiter is not causing her harm. You want to know why? Because Jupiter is in its own sign, and not only that, Jupiter is in a bad house. So the rule is this: you want functional benefics in benefic houses, and you want functional malefics in malefic houses, and that way the negativity destroys itself, and the blessings of the planets add to the blessings of the houses. See, everything's in order. So in Lourdes's case, she has Saturn in the second house, which is blessing that house, and then the second lord and the 11th lord are ruled by the same planet, and that lord is in its own house, which is blessing it again. And then what else do we see? We see that she has Rahu in the 8th house, which suggests that she has Ketu in the second house, and Ketu is blessing her with even more wealth. This is interesting because actually Lord Dez's chart is suggesting to us that she was born with more wealth than who are we talking about? Blue Ivy and Northwest. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. And yes, you do see that Mercury is technically, and then Mercury, of course, is also a functional benefic. It is a lesser functional benefic for a Aquarius ascendant, and it's shining its aspects. And then the Sun is a Maraka, is a deck causing house. It is a functional malefic. It is also shining its aspects, but overwhelmingly everything else is pointing towards wealth. Okay, so let's check the chat. Ooh. All right then. Ketu is a wealth and blessing giver because Ketu represents extreme abundance, whereas Rahu represents extreme scarcity, extreme lack. Oh, Selena the singer, we'll check her out. Cristiano Ronaldo, wasn't he born poor? Elaborate on functional benefics and functional malefics. All right, let's see how I can help to elaborate that. You want me to elaborate on functional benefics and functional malefics? All right, so check this out. If a planet rules your first house, it generally suggests that it is a functional malefic. A functional benefic, so sorry. If a planet that rules your first, your fifth, and your ninth, these are the most blessed houses. And so if a planet rules those houses, it is generally considered to be a functional benefic. But if a planet rules the third, the sixth, and the 11th houses, that is a functional malefic. So functional benefic, I even have it up here. Functional benefic equals, equals first, fifth, and ninth lords. And functional malefic equals third, sixth, and 11th lord. And then the second house and the 8th house are seen as malleable houses. And then the 4th, 7th, and 10th just add more power to things. But the 7th house is also a death-causing house. So the death-causing houses are 2nd and 7th. So there's also that. So I hope that helps clear things up a little bit. That's kind of what I'm trying to do, Cybermaid. You're asking over here, can you please give tips on analyzing if someone was born rich or poor? But isn't that what I'm doing? Or am I not doing it in the style that you... Because I feel like that's what I'm doing. Bill Gates is... Ooh, wow. Suddenly the chat jumped. Bill Gates' children were also born wealthy, but are they famous enough to have like their birth times in like Astro theme? I don't know. Yes, Northwest having Mars and Maga, or somebody, I don't know who has Mars and Maga, I forgot, but that also does help, yes. Beyonce, um, was Beyonce born upper class? I think her mother owned a salon, her father, they were doing well. No, K2 is abundance. K2 is an abundance that a person then gets bored with and then they move on to something else. Rahu is truly lack, it's inexperience. That's what it is. Let's go check Beyonce. Beyonce, born poor. I know she wasn't born poor, but I want to know how wealthy she was born. Comfortable, middle to upper class. Beyonce was born comfortable, middle to upper class. Yeah, I would describe her the same way. Let's check her birth chart. AA verified by none other than Claire Nocti. Okay. Let's check her fourth and her second. So her second lord is seemingly debilitated, but when a planet is debilitated, but it is, especially when it's friends with the planet that rules its debilitation sign, then it's lifted from debility. Nish Bang Raj Yoga, right? So Venus is in Virgo, but Mercury is also in Virgo, so her Venus is not debilitated. It's the debilitation is canceled. And so that is a good sign. Her Venus is there, that's a good sign. But because her Venus is in the 6th house, it still suggests struggle. And so there is wealth with some degree of struggle in this person's life. Wealth with some degree of struggle. And then we see the fourth lord. The fourth lord is seemingly debilitated, but look, there's an exchange, there's a Parivartan yoga between Mars and Moon. Both are seemingly debilitated, but because there's a Parivartan yoga, it's Nishbang, and so they mutually lift each other up. The real problem in Beyonce's chart is the fact that she has Rahu conjunct Mars in the 4th house. Now that's the real problem, actually. If it weren't for that conjunction, she would probably have been born even more wealthy than she was. She would have probably been born even more wealthy than what she was. So there's that. So Beyonce, I guess we can put her on this list, but that's not really the sort of wealth that we're talking about, right? But I guess we can put her on this list. Let's check somebody else. Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this actress. She was born very, very wealthy. Why is Julia Louis-Dreyfus rich? Let's check this out. However, her family background is exceptionally wealthy. She's the heiress to the Louise Dreyfus Company, a multi-billion-dollar global agricultural and commodities conglomerate. And so she was born very wealthy. Julia Louise Dreyfus. Let's check her chart. Let us check her chart. A verified. Okay, great. Her second lord is well placed. It's in the 6th house, so it suggests wealth would struggle, but it's well placed, so that's great. And then not only is it well placed, but check this out. It's conjunct Ketu because Rahu is in her 12th house at 12 degrees. And so Ketu is conjunct her Venus. So Ketu is conjunct her second lord, which suggests extreme wealth. It suggests extreme wealth. So there's that. Her fourth house is interesting because Saturn is there. That's not very good because Saturn is Saturn for a Virgo ascendant is a functional benefic. All right, fine then. So Saturn is not causing too much harm, actually. And then she has Jupiter there. Jupiter in its own sign. So Jupiter is also not causing harm. It's adding. Okay, so all of these things suggest wealth. Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Louis-Dreyfus. Extreme wealth. Okay, let's check one more wealth example. Then let's go back to the chat. Cara Delevingne. Cara Delevingne was born wealthy, wasn't she? No, Cara Delevingne was not born poor. She grew up in an upper class, wealthy British family with prominent social and royal connections. Cara Delevingne, birth chart. C verified by Claire Nocti. All right. So we see over here that her second lord is in the 2nd house. So that's great. When your second lord is in the 2nd house, that's great. Not causing any harm there. We see that the 8th lord is in the 2nd house. For a Sagittarius ascendant, the 8th lord is more so a neutral planet. It's not really doing much. But something else that is happening is that the ninth lord is also aspecting the second house. So that's great. So that's great. All right. It's not obvious to me though. I would have expected to see more things. Or I would have expected to see stronger indications, to be honest. These are nice indications, but I would have expected to see stronger indications. In any case. All right, let's check the chat. If you have the second lord in the sixth house, it does suggest early life struggles. It does. But if it's well placed, it doesn't do that as much. And depending on other conditions, it doesn't do that as much. Ooh, the chat jumped. No, Rahu is not more miserable than Ketu. Both Rahu and Ketu are both very miserable planets in their own way, actually, unfortunately. They're like the worst malefics. But Ketu represents an abundance that you're ignorant of. Rahu represents a lack that you're extremely aware of. Many astrologers, Shibel, consider Mars to be neutral for Scorpio ascendants. Precisely for the reasons that you're stating over here, because it rules the first and the sixth. But many other astrologers still consider Mars to be a functional benefic, but a lesser benefic. A lot of astrologers say that for a Scorpio ascendant, the moon is the most prominent benefic. More benefic than Mars itself. Venus for a Gemini ascendant is functional benefic because Venus rules one of either the fifth or the ninth. It rules the fifth. It rules the fifth. Hailey Bieber was born wealthy. Yes, Hailey Bieber was born wealthy. I know that much, but let's just confirm a little bit. Yes, well-known, wealthy entertainment family. She's a Baldwin. She's a Baldwin. She's a Baldwin. So that's why she was born wealthy. And check this out. She's a Scorpio ascendant, and for a Scorpio ascendant, Jupiter is a functional benefic, and Jupiter is also in the second house. Clear as day, that blesses you with a lot of wealth. Clear as day, that blesses you with a lot of wealth. But let's see if we can find other things here. Let's see if we can find other things here. Excuse me. All right. Jupiter in the second is a good position, but overall, her having a strong ascendant lord would also suggest overall having grown up well. But I would have expected to see more. Hailey Bieber, we'll add that here. Hailey Bieber. Let's add another rich celebrity. I put Armie Hammer here. Armie Hammer. He certainly gives the air of somebody who was born wealthy. Armie Hammer, yes, he was born into great affluence and wealth. If I remember correctly, that is definitely true. Armie Hammer, AA verified birth time. AA verified birth time. Okay, okay. So in terms of his second lord is all right. I mean, for a Gemini ascendant, the moon is a neutral planet. The moon is exalted. It's the second lord. Okay, fine, fine. is in the 12th house. If a planet is well placed in the 12th house, it suggests that you are a person who grew up in a world so comfortable that it was removed from the everyday struggle of the everyday man. Like that disconnected wealthy person, that out of touch wealthy person, that's the sort of wealth that the 12th house relates to. So his second lord is exalted in the 12th house. Okay, that's good. That definitely suggests some wealth, but let's check some other things. Looking at his fourth house, we see that K2 is in his fourth house, okay, which also can suggest wealth. It can suggest a person who grew up with a lot of property, a lot of land. His family owned a lot of land, all right? But we see that Venus is debilitated. Venus is debilitated. And it's not obvious to me what is saving Venus from debility here. Venus is debilitated. Now, Venus is a functional benefic for a Gemini ascendant, and so it's not trying to do harm. By the way, that's something else about functional benefics and malefics that I didn't talk about. The thing about a functional benefic is that the purpose is to do you good. The purpose of a functional benefic is to do you good. It is to add comfort to your life, happiness to your life. Whereas the purpose of a functional malefic is to add challenges, difficulties, hurdles, pain, and suffering, because it's the yin and yang of life, you know what I mean? So the functional malefics is like the darker, more negative aspects of reality, whereas your functional benefic is more like the positive aspects of your reality. So yes, Armie Hammer's chart also makes a lot of sense for wealth. No, sorry, we're not trying to save that. How is K2 the wealth giver? What is K2? K2 has to do with the wealth of your ancestors, the wealth of your forefathers. You know what I mean? It is your inherited gifts. K2 has a lot to do with your inheritance, your inherited talents, your inherited opportunities, your inherited power. And so it is in that sense that K2 has a lot to do with wealth. When you have a well-placed K2, when your K2 is strong, connecting to your ancestors is easy. Connecting to your talents is easy because your talents come from your ancestors. Connecting to your gifts is easy. But your gifts are not only your intelligence. Your gift is not only your physical beauty. Your gift is many things. Your gift is also money. Money is also a gift, right? But the thing about K2 is this. K2 relates to our power that we are ignorant of. So let us check an image of Goddess Dhumavati. Goddess Dhumavati represents the perfection of planet K2. I don't even know what image to use. Okay, let's use this image. So Goddess Dhumavati is the refinement of planet Ketu. She represents the perfection of planet Ketu. But notice something about Goddess Dhumavati. She is surrounded by a lot of gold. She is called the begging goddess. She is old, she's tired, she's emaciated, and she's extremely greedy because she does not recognize that she's surrounded by a lot of gold. And so this is a little bit of Ketu energy, right? A lot of Ketu people, they can have a lot of talent, a lot of power, but they are so ignorant of it that they believe that they are lacking. And so that ends up creating some level of insecurity in them, right? Ketu represents our unconscious power, our unconscious behavior. And you want to know what the mantra of Goddess Dhumavati is? The mantra of Goddess Dhumavati is the mantra of Rahu. Goddess Dhumavati uses the power of Rahu to perfect Ketu. Whereas Ketu represents unconscious behavior and unconscious power, Rahu represents conscious awareness. So the way of healing your Ketu is through the power of conscious awareness. When Goddess Dhumavati becomes aware of her power, all of a sudden it becomes easier for you to make use of the gold that is around you, the gift that is around you, right? So that is what Goddess Dhumavati represents. And so yes, Ketu is wealth for that reason. Ketu is extreme abundance. Ketu gives you more abundance than Jupiter. So obviously the 11th house, like any other house, has its good and bad. But the 11th house is called a Trisha Daya house, and it's considered the ultimate evil house because why? Yes, because of the things that we were talking about, the lack that we were talking about. The 11th house is also considered the house of extreme greed and extreme lust because it creates a lot of desires within a person. How does the fourth lord pertain to wealth? Because it relates to property. Property is one of the most basic ways in which you're given wealth, in which you have wealth. And it relates to the comfort of the early life because it relates to your home, the home you grew up with, in. All right, all right, all right, all right. Let's check a few more examples. Okay, let's go back to the poor examples. Let us go back to the poor examples. Let's check Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey was born poor. Oprah Winfrey was born poor. Was born into severe poverty in rural, I can't even pronounce that, Mississippi. Her Wikipedia also says that she was born poor. I think it's relatively well known that Oprah Winfrey was born poor. It's the story that we've been telling for a very long time. A verified birth time, Sagittarius ascendant. For a Sagittarius ascendant, what are the worst planets? The worst planets are Venus because it rules the 11th house. Venus and Saturn, those are the worst planets. Venus would have been well in the second house for her, but it is conjunct the Sun. And so, since it's a very, very inimical conjunction, it is bringing out a lot of Venus's more evil qualities. And then, what else do we see about Oprah? She has Rahu in the second. It's not obvious over here because it says 29 degrees. But if we go to AstroSeek, I'm sure we will see Rahu in the second. There we go. Rahu is at 0 degrees of Capricorn. And Rahu is the planet of extreme lack. Rahu is the planet of extreme lack that then creates extreme desire. Rahu is a planet that can create an extremely jealous person, an extremely ambitious person, because you see yourself as so lacking, right? She has Rahu in the second, and she has Venus conjunct Sun in the second. Venus really bringing out its evil tendencies for a Sagittarius ascendant. So all of that suggests poverty. Her second lord is well placed in the 11th house in Libra, but we're seeing that it was not enough to overwhelm the poverty of her early life. All right, then, all right, all right. So Oprah Winfrey going into our poor list. Oprah Winfrey. Let's check another poor example. Cardi B, do we have her birth time? Cardi B. C verified, okay. C verified. Okay, so Mars is obviously a functional benefic for a Pisces ascendant, but her Mars is not too well because it's in Gemini and it's quite badly placed. It's quite badly placed, which suggests early life struggles. We see poverty over here, but we also see a little bit of poverty over here as well. So that's unfortunate. We see that, we see that. So yeah. But how much poverty did she grow up in, I wonder? Because even though Venus and Mercury are functional malefics, they are relatively well placed in Libra over here, and they're shining their aspect onto the second. But then again, they still are functional malefics. How much poverty did she grow up in, I wonder? But in any case, Cardi B going into our poor list. Let's check somebody else. I don't even know. Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo. All right then. So Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't know how much poverty he grew up in. I should have checked the AI thing. The first lord in the second house could be a blessing, but in his case, it is debilitated. And then we see that it's lifted from debility because we see that moon is opposite to it. One way of canceling the debility of a planet is if a planet is debilitated, but the planet that rules its sign of exaltation is in its own sign or exalted, then that planet lifts it from debility. So Jupiter is debilitated by Moon is in Cancer. Jupiter exalts in Cancer and Moon is in Cancer. So the Moon is helping lift Jupiter. But the real problem for Cristiano Ronaldo is that Jupiter is conjunct Mercury. Now Mercury is really what's causing the harm. Mercury is really what's causing the harm. And Mercury is also a functional malefic for a Sagittarius ascendant. But then that's not all. Because look at the second lord. The second lord is also very badly placed. It's in Scorpio. Saturn is in Scorpio. Very badly placed, especially because Mars is enough houses away to make it very inimical. So the real problems for Cristiano Ronaldo is that Jupiter was conjunct Mercury and the second lord, which is Saturn, was in Scorpio. Those are the real problems for him. If it were not for that, he would probably have been born quite well. Cristiano Ronaldo. All right, let's check the chat. All right, let's look at your chart, Lola. 11/21/2005. Wait, what did it say? 11/21/2005. So that's November 21, 2005. 11:24 a.m. 11:24 a.m. Hoboken, New Jersey. Hoboken, New Jersey. Okay, we're checking if Lola was born wealthy or born poor. Are you an Uttara Ashada ascendant, Lola? Okay, fine then. So Saturn rules your second house. Okay, we see Saturn in Cancer. Saturn in Cancer is not happy there. Saturn at 17 degrees, Moon 11 degrees, and it's conjunct the Moon as well. That's not very good. The fourth lord, we see that the fourth lord Mars is there. All right, Mars is in its own house. So Lola, I'm going to take a wild guess here and say that you were probably not born wealthy. In fact, you were probably born lower middle class. You were probably born lower middle class, but you do have Mars well placed in the fourth, so that might help. But I'm going to guess that you were born lower middle class, Lola. So please confirm, deny. Yes, you were born lower middle class, Lola. Because Mercury rules a death-inflicting house, which is the seventh house. Many astrologers place Mercury as a functional malefic for a Sagittarius ascendant because it rules a death-inflicting house. So yes, Mercury loses its benefic nature because whenever a planet rules two Kendras, it loses its if a natural malefic rules two Kendras, it loses its malefic nature. If a natural benefic rules two Kendras, it rules its benefic natures. And so in the case of Mercury, it loses its benefic nature, but because it rules also the seventh house, it gains a malefic nature, and so it becomes a functional malefic because it's a Maraka. Okay, Lola, great. You were born lower middle class, but now you are upper middle class. Good for you. Jay-Z was born poor. Okay. Jay-Z. Yes, because Jay-Z was selling drugs to... Wasn't he selling drugs to kids? If I remember correctly, he was selling drugs to kids when he was younger. See a verified birth time. Okay. So for a Leo ascendant, the moon is neutral because it rules the 12th house. The 12th house is considered a neutral house in this whole functional malefic, functional benefic thing. And it's in the second house. All right. The second lord is not happy in Scorpio because the second lord is Mercury. It is not happy in Scorpio. It is not happy in Scorpio. But how much poverty is this really? Now, the fourth house is really taking a lot of damage because the fourth house is being afflicted by both Mercury and Venus. Looking at his second house individually, we don't really see too much there. Yeah, we see a little bit because Mercury is not well placed, but his fourth house is really taking a lot of damage. His fourth house is really taking a lot of damage. So that could really be more so the cause of a lot of poverty in early life. Okay then, Jay-Z will put you in the bin of people who were born poor. All right then, that's enough poor examples for right now. Let us check some rich examples. Elon Musk. So this is interesting because didn't Elon Musk himself say that he was born poor? But then many people were like, no, Elon, you were born very wealthy because your dad owned an emerald mine or something. Elon Musk, according to AI, was born in an affluent upper middle class household in South Africa with a wealthy father who was an engineer and property developer. Okay, fine then. Elon Musk, let's see what we can see about your birth chart. Elon Musk. All right. So he's a Gemini ascendant. The second lord is Moon. Moon is neutral for a Gemini ascendant. The moon is in the third house, which is not a very good house, but it's in Leo, so that's okay. Looking at that, it does not really seem like such a big deal. But check this out. He has Ketu in the second house. And Ketu loves water signs, generally speaking. It is generally said that Ketu in water and in fire signs does well. He has Ketu in the second house. That's very, very good. It suggests that he was born with a lot of abundance there. And then his fourth lord is in the first house. So that's great. So those two things suggest wealth. I would have expected to see more things. But yes, just those two things apparently would be enough to bless him with a lot of wealth in his early life, which he was blessed with. All right, Elon Musk, you go into our wealthy bin. Let's look at another example. Oh, let's look at royalty. Queen Elizabeth. We don't need to check AI to know that she was born very wealthy. In fact, we can even change this conversation and look at wealth and look at royals. AA verified, okay. Sagittarius ascendants. For a Sagittarius ascendant, what are some of the functional benefics? Mars, obviously, because Mars rules the fifth. Jupiter could be seen as a neutral. She has Mars and Jupiter in the second house. Jupiter may seem debilitated because it's in Capricorn, but remember, Mars is exalted. An exalted planet conjuncted a debilitated planet, and they're both naturally friends, Jupiter is lifted from debility. So Mars and Jupiter both in the second house blesses her with a lot of wealth. It blesses her with a lot of wealth. Her second lord is not very well in Scorpio, but it's at 0 degrees, so it's not cursing her too much. What else do we see? We see Moon in its own house in the 8th, shining her aspect, shining the Moon's aspect into the second. That's something else that's also very, very good. Yeah, we see a lot of things that point to wealth. We see a lot of things that point to wealth. We see a lot of things in Queen Elizabeth's chart that points to wealth. All right, then Queen Elizabeth. All right, let's check the chat. Right now, we're not really talking about wealth given nakshatras. In terms of wealth given nakshatras, honestly, there are a lot. There are a lot of wealth building nakshatras. Boa noite. Contemporary royals, sorry for stuttering. Yes, we're gonna start looking at royals right now. People who eventually made their own money and became millionaires in their own rights. Yes, we can check that. Donald Trump was definitely born wealthy, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure Donald Trump was born wealthy. Born wealthy. Yes, Donald Trump was born wealthy. Let us check Donald Trump's chart. AA verified. A Leo ascendant. Okay, so Jupiter is a functional benefic for a Leo ascendant. Jupiter is in the second house, which is good. But the thing is that Jupiter is not really giving its full effects because Jupiter is in Virgo. It's not really giving its full effects. But the second lord, which is a functional malefic, but it's in its own sign in the 11th house. So once again, even though the 11th house, when it's badly placed, carries a lot of quote-unquote evil qualities, when the 11th house lord is well placed and also in the 11th house, it suggests that a person was born very, very well connected, who was born as a powerful figure within society, and other people went to that person because they saw them as a cash cow, they saw them as somebody who was powerful, and they wanted to always make deals with that person. And they looked to that person to make their own wishes come true. So the fact that his second lord is in the 11th house and it's very well placed in its own sign, that is something else that suggests somebody who was born wealthy, born very well connected, born in a life where, yes, he can very easily make deals, born in a life of a lot of ease. The 11th house is the greatest house of lack. And so when you defeat the 11th house by having well-placed planets there, instead of creating lack, it creates a lot of ease. A lot of ease. You easily navigate within society. All doors open to you. Like the 11th house, when it's well-placed, there is no door that is closed. And you don't have to embarrass yourself to walk into those doors. So in Donald Trump's case, that's very, very good. And then we see that he had Ketu in the 4th house. When you have Ketu in the 4th house, it basically suggests that your family owned a lot of land. If you have Ketu in the 4th house, it suggests that your family owned a lot of land. Now, his moon is debilitated in the 4th house, but because the moon is a neutral for a Leo ascendant, it's not causing him too much harm. It's just not doing him a lot of good, but it's not causing him harm because it's not a planet that is whose intention is to cause him harm. So yeah, so there's that. All right, Donald Trump, you go into the wealth bin. Okay, let's check Prince William. Since we said that we want to check royalty, let's check Prince William. Prince William, Prince William. We all know that he was born wealthy. There's no celebrity manipulation, celebrity marketing here. The man was born wealthy. We know this. All right. Prince William, Prince William. Sagittarius ascendant. The second lord is Saturn. Saturn is in Virgo, a sign that it likes very much. Saturn is in Virgo. So, yes. But Saturn is conjunct an enemy, which is Mars. But the great thing about Mars is that for a Sagittarius ascendant, Mars is a functional benefic. So because Saturn is well placed, it is not causing him. Okay, let me write this down so I don't confuse anybody. Remember, the purpose of a functional malefic is to cause harm. But if the functional malefic is well placed, if functional malefic is well placed, it loses its ability to cause harm. A functional malefic is going to cause you a lot of harm when it's badly placed. But if it's well placed, it's not going to cause you harm. Its intention is not to do you good, but it loses its ability to cause you harm. The opposite is true for a functional benefic. The purpose of functional benefic is to do good. And if a functional benefic is well placed, it does a lot of good. But if it is badly placed, it does not do you good, but it never does you harm, because the purpose of the functional benefic is not to do you harm. So no matter how badly placed your functional benefic is, it's not going to do you harm, but it is going to be a point of weakness. And so because it's a point of weakness, you as the individual, the way that you go about living your life, you can act in a way that can create more harm for yourself. But the intention is not to do you harm. So Saturn loses its ability to do harm because it is well placed, but it's conjunct a functional benefic. It's conjunct a functional benefic, which unfortunately means that it's being aggravated to some degree. But okay. And then what else do we see here? What else do we see here? We see Ketu in the first house, but we're not doing that right now. What is very interesting is that we also see the first lord in the 11th. And though it is a functional benefic, meaning that it's not going to do you harm, it's badly placed. So that's very, very interesting. Okay, Prince William, inconclusive. Where are we? Born wealthy. Prince William, yeah, there are some things that point to him being born wealthy, but it requires more study. Inconclusive. It requires more study. It requires more study. Prince Harry, let's check this guy out. Prince Harry. Okay, Prince Harry's chart is more obviously wealthy. He's also Sagittarius ascendant. The second lord is exalted in the 11th house. When to have an exalted planet in the 11th house suggests having grown up in a world where every door is open to you. You are a person of a great abundance and great ease. You move throughout society with great ease. Every door is open to you, etc., etc. So Prince Harry's chart is very obviously pointing to a wealthy individual. Prince Harry, very obviously pointing to a wealthy individual. Okay. Princess Diana was born wealthy. How old am I? I turned 30 in July. This is Vedic astrology, yes. I turned 30 in July. All right then, all right then. Oh wow, we've been here for an hour already? Dang. I not only sound younger, I also look younger. But in any case. So yeah, I hope that this was a fun little stream. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. I try to do something a little bit more spontaneous. Depending on how you guys respond to this style of video, I might decide to do more spontaneous videos, or I might just like really stick more strictly to my more scripted sort of video. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for being here with me. I'm so glad that so many of you guys tuned in. I hope that I was capable of helping you guys understand a few things. I hope that I was capable of teaching you guys a few things, you know. So yes. Thank you guys very, very much. So, see you in the next live. I think the next will probably be more